You're listening to Today at Museum of the Bible. These exclusive conversations with authors, scholars, and specialists visiting the museum focus on how they are currently engaging with the Bible in their lives and work.
Welcome to Today at Museum of the Bible. I'm Charlotte Clay.
And I'm Jeff Cloa.
And today we are joined by special guest Dr. Roy Brown. Dr. Roy Brown is the founder of the Accordance software application, one of the very first Bible programs available in 1988. Dr. Brown, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. So can you tell us what is this Bible software and why did you create it?
Accordance Bible software is software that enables people to get into the Bible. It's very simple. It's a little bit like, it's in many ways analogous to the invention of printing that allowed people to distribute things much more efficiently. Well, the computer lets you do it even faster and more efficiently, but it's not just simply to give you more materials, like commentaries and so on. What Accordance is best at is in doing research in original text and in the English text, also in English translations, and we have several other translations. For example, I give the classic example is you could go to a classic concordance like Strong's Concordance and find everywhere Son is used. But can you go to Strong's Concordance and find Son of God? You can't find the phrase. But you can easily just type in an accordance, Son of God, and it finds it for you immediately, where that phrase is, which you could not do or do it with a lot of difficulty on a printed version. Now, some people have said that software allows you to do things printing did, but even faster. Oh, yeah. But that's true to a certain extent, but what we do in the computer is do a lot of other things, many of which I showed in the seminar that I just presented here at the Museum of the Bible. I would say, as far as the reason I got into it, I have a background actually in science and engineering. I'm not a Bible scholar, even though I know how to pretend to be one at conferences.
You know Hebrew pretty well.
Yeah, but that's from Israel. It's modern Hebrew I know pretty well. But anyway, I had just a personal interest in the Bible. That was all it really was. And in the early 1990s when we developed Accordance, I felt like I was one of the few qualified to actually do such a thing. And so that made it almost a call. Sure. Because almost all Bible scholars at that time didn't even know what a computer was or couldn't turn it on, hardly. And most programmers have no idea of what you want to do in research in the Bible. And I felt, especially because I'd already knew some Hebrew and some Greek then, that I could put my foot in both worlds. And that was really the reason that I felt I could fulfill a special, relatively unique need. Now, there's a handful of other people that have been both to seminary and in programming, but it was very, very rare.
Sure.
Even today, most scholars are intimidated with computers.
Yeah, well,
I'm not looking at you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually a paying customer.
Okay.
So you can give me some royalties later on for that. But
okay.
But I've been using Accordance for probably about 20 years. I mean, it's very sophisticated, the Greek, the Hebrew, the Latin, and now Syriac, all kinds of things in the software. And for those, who don't know the languages or something, what software like Accordance allows you to do is to find kind of detailed analysis, really kind of in the weeds kinds of things that create connections between texts. Talk about the example you gave us in the little seminar about Elohim and the singular verb.
That's a good example.
Maybe a little detail, but just so people kind of get a sense of what
it's
you
something
can do.
That's almost impossible to do or would take very long time to do by hand. The word Elohim means God in Hebrew, and it's a very, very frequently used word. But what's interesting about the word, it has a plural ending in Hebrew, but yet it's treated as singular. Oh. In other words, mime is another word that's a plural ending. YM, or Yud Mem in Hebrew, is the masculine plural ending. Actually, Vav Taf is the plural ending in feminine, but this is a masculine word. And so, anyway, but what's interesting is, even though it has a plural ending, it's used in the singular with verbs. For example, a very common expression in the Hebrew Bible is Vayomer Elohim, and God said. Okay, well, the verb to say is in singular, but the word God is in plural.
And so he's breaking the grammatical rules.
Right? Yes, it's sort of breaking the grammatical rules, although a lot of them are just sort of conventions almost. Yeah. I mean, like I never use say publicly the name of God, for example. That's a habit I picked up in Israel, probably. Yud He Vav He,
Right.
with the 4-letter, but you say Lord instead. That's a convention, but it's
right.
written with Yud He Vav He in Hebrew, YHWH in English. And so, anyway, what accordance allows you to do is find all the places, which are just a handful really in the entire Hebrew Bible, where Elohim occurs as a subject with a plural verb. And the way we do this, we can't just do it with what's called morphological searching. This is where morphology means you grammatically tag each word. But what we use is syntactical searching, where you look at the syntax, which means things like the clause divisions, the subject, predicate, object, complement, things like that, more detailed grammar. And so to find that particular case, what we did was we had to put it in a clause so that the word Elohim would only go with its own verb, not with somebody else's verb. And then that verb has to be plural, and it has to be the predicate, because in some tagging systems, the present tense is not tagged as a predicate. And then we said the word Elohim has to be the subject, because in one hit where it is plural, it's the sons of God, not God himself.
Right.
I'm trying to stick to English as much as I can here. And so by doing that, we actually found in accordance fairly quickly all the places in the entire Hebrew Bible which use a plural verb and with God in the plural, even though the vast majority of the times it's used singular. Now, accordance only gives you the information. It doesn't do the work for you. You have to decide why it is that way. That's a scholarly research project. It could be because of a textual issue, could be because of an interpretation issue. For example, the word Elohim occasionally means gods, like idols, but it's still exactly the same word, and so that's why it's used in plural. And it could be other subtle reasons. In fact, in the case of one of the cases we found where only Hebrew has it in the Masoretic text, and it doesn't occur in any other textual witness, I had somebody explain to me in Hebrew, and I forgot the explanation why that's the proper use of it, that it should be plural and all the others are wrong. But I don't remember the exact details of the explanation, but there was sort of a textual issue.
Right.
So anyway, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's to do that by hand, you need a list of all the occurrences of Elohim, and then you need to look up every one to figure out where it's used with
but you have to constrain it. If you look up every one, you're going to have thousands.
Right.
Okay,
right.
you have to constrain it.
With accordance, you can do it in 6 seconds.
Yes,
and you have all the data.
by constraining it to be in the same clause, and by constraining it to be a plural verb and a subject in the same clause.
Yeah.
That's how you'd find it.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And one project we're talking about doing with accordance is to take some of our really unique and important biblical manuscripts and imaging them and adding them to the software, right? So what does that allow users to do?
What it allows users to do is compare the image with the electronic text. We have several examples of that already in accordance, and I showed them at the seminar. We have Dr. John Trevor's original color photographs of Qumran taken in 1948 from mainly Cave 1. And you can compare those with either the Masoretic text, or in accordance we have the complete tagged electronic text of Qumran, both the biblical and the non-biblical manuscripts. They're actually, I didn't even show much. I could have shown you a lot more of Qumran. And so now you can examine the Qumran text together with the manuscripts and compare it. Did they interpret this letter right? Sometimes they make mistakes in reading the manuscripts. And another example is we have the Septuagint compared to the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus sources. They have the Septuagint as well as the Greek New Testament. And the other example is we have the pictures of the Leningrad Codex, which is the main codex that's used by scholars in the modern Hebrew Bibles that students and researchers use today. Although I have to put in a word for the Museum of the Bible here, I'm extremely impressed that you have this Washington Codex. Even though it's just of the Torah, it fills in the gap that the Aleppo Codex lacks, because it's amazing we have anything in the Aleppo Codex, because rescued it when the synagogue was burned in 1948.
Right.
And so the fact you have that is extremely important.
And it's older than Leningrad. So
it's older than Leningrad,
yeah.
and most scholars, including I'm not really a scholar, but I hadn't even heard of it until you told me about it.
Well, so we want to put images out.
And
so
that
everyone
that
can
would be
use
an
it.
extremely good case to put that one as images to compare to the modern Masoretic text that we have, which is basically the Leningrad Codex, although we actually also use the German Bible Society's Biblische Stuttgartensia. We also have some of their Quinta, but that's at the rate it's going, it'll be 50 years before it's done.
I'll be retired.
These scholars go very slowly sometimes on these editions. But anyway, does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah.
In other words, it allows you to compare the picture on accordance with the text itself.
Yeah, which, again, 25, 30 years ago, you didn't have access to images at all.
And you didn't have
now you can
access.
pop it on your laptop screen.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Where do you see Bible study software being in 10 years?
Well, what's happened in Bible study software, I honestly don't know. I don't like to predict the future, but
Oh, come on, give it a shot.
I don't know. Computers are changing so much. And of course, there's the big boogaboo, artificial intelligence,
Right.
which we don't claim anything. I dreamed of that 20 or 30 years ago, of having artificial intelligence pick out different theological viewpoints in the Bible.
Interesting.
But still, it hasn't been done.
Yeah.
What's Wesleyan or what's Reformed or
Oh,
what's,
yeah, okay.
stuff like that. Or, and so anyway, in 10 years, that's an excellent question. I hope accordance is around 20 years, but you can't presume on the future. Bible software could be all dead in 10 years.
No.
Yes, because they're commercial enterprises and they have to survive commercially. I mean,
Sure.
we are not a nonprofit organization like Museum of the Bible is. We don't depend on donations. We depend on, and so do all the others. But I have to go ahead and say this publicly that ourselves and one other company are really the only major players now.
Yeah,
There's been a real, if you
shakeup.
saw 20 or 30 years ago, there was about 20 or 30 Bible software products, but they've either dropped off or they've consolidated and been bought off by other companies. And so today it's us and one other major player that are really serious. I hope we survive, but you can't presume. There's companies that have gone, you think are so big and can't fail, that have failed. That's the nature of commercial companies.
Right.
But I see Museum of the Bible, if I could put a plug in for you, I see it lasting many generations.
Yeah.
What you're doing here is phenomenal work, and I don't say that uncritically.
But yeah, let's say crystal ball, right? Is there something that you tried to do with Bible software and couldn't, or didn't have the right computing power?
I would say the thing we don't know, we have the computing power because I didn't show you everything. We even do, I could have shown you much more in the time I had.
Yeah.
We even do textual comparison, like what are the phrases in common between Qumran and the Hebrew Bible. I didn't even show you that.
That's pretty slick, yeah.
But it could be improved. Okay, it's a very simple algorithm. It could be improved. Okay, the place, I would say that one requires more computing power. We have it, but really we're doing a lot. The main things that we would do are to get texts that have not been e-texted, because the expensive process is the e-texting, taking an ancient text and making electronic. That is a very expensive process. And that's where, like, for example, I'd love to put your Washington Codex on accordance as an e-text with tagging.
With tagging, yeah.
But that's going to require a lot of work to do. But maybe we can do it with these shortcuts that I discussed with you, where we can make it a derivative product or something like that. But I would say in 10 years, boy, that's where I would say we will have more text, but I don't know where we'll be, honestly, because companies buy each other out. I hope Accordance survives for 10 years. You'll survive a lot longer than we will. I didn't think when we started this in the 90s, I didn't think we'd be around in 2023.
Yeah, it's just an idea, right?
It was just, even after we started it, I didn't think we'd be around this long. I thought we'd either fail or somebody would buy us out or something. I'm being just realistic, not pessimistic. So that's the best answer I can give. I don't know what will happen in 10 years. That is totally, things are moving so fast in the computer world and with AI. I have no idea. I'd like to have good applications of AI in the Bible, but I think it's got a long way to go. One person I read somewhere has a Bible-oriented, something similar to is it
GPT.
GPT, yeah.
But quite frankly, it doesn't do much. And plus, AI, we shouldn't be scared. It's just Elisa on steroids. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even in Washington, D.C., I've heard 2 people just in the subway, in the metro, saying they're afraid of AI. These
Really?
are just very simple people. They're just workers there, and they're all afraid of AI. Well, AI is not sentient. Sorry, I shouldn't talk too much about AI, but it is not sentient. It's like a more sophisticated straw man. It's just more sophisticated, and all it knows is what's been given it.
Right.
It searches the internet and to find all of this stuff. Now, I think it's a great piece of software engineering, but it is still not sentient, and it is prone to error. And the dangers I see in it are people are going to look at it like God, like it's the fountain of all truth, and that is absolutely not true, and that makes it very dangerous.
Is there a particular moment that was really impactful for you in your work or discovery the software made? Anything?
I would say it's not the software itself. That was a lot of hard work.
Sure.
I did late nights getting stuff ready in our early days. I mean, we were just working like crazy just to get ready. Our main venue for showing the software is the SBL and ETS conference every November. And we would just stay up, pull all-nighters just to get it ready. But that was in the early days. Now we've got too much to show, and nobody ever sees everything. But I would say for me, the biggest benefit personally, it's been extremely fulfilling, is the personal connection I've had with scholars that have been customers of ours. Dr. Martin Abegg is the one that did the e-text for Qumran. We've just been blessed by knowing all these top-level, world-class scholars, and getting to know them personally I would say, has been the thing that's really, and it's also helped me personally. I'm a different person being in accordance than I was 25 years ago. I've met a lot broader range of people. I've met top-rated Jewish scholars, Catholic scholars, Orthodox scholars. Just recently, one of our users, I was just recently in Sinai and was at the at the library at St. Catherine's Monastery and met the librarian, and he uses accordance. That's how I got in to see the library, which very few people get to see.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this has been the thing that's really been a blessing for me, is it's increased my respect and reverence. I had respect for the Bible before, but I know it's a much more deeper respect, maybe you could put it that way, than I had when I got started on this.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, there are many, many people from all different backgrounds who want to help others learn the Bible better.
Yes.
And accordance is a good example of
Yes, and I've been embarrassed. I've had people tell me, "We bless you every day we turn on accordance." Well, that's I'm not trying to start a cult.
Yeah.
But
it's really making a difference in people's work.
They say it's really made an impact in their work, and I think that also has been a fulfillment. But I think for me personally, it's been meeting these scholars and even seeing the range of thought that these scholars have, that nobody's got all the answers.
Right.
And you have to give other people respect, even in communities that you wouldn't agree with on everything they do.
Yeah.
That you meet these people from other faith traditions and even non-Christians. I don't know. We have a few Mormons, and we have many in the Jewish community that are not Christian, but yet hearing their perspective has really broadened my perspective.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, learn from each other.
And this is why I like the museum here, is because y'all have been very sensitive to that.
Absolutely.
Of other people. You have something, the Catholic room and the Catholic canon and the Jewish, you even have rabbis working here. And so I think that's really good.
Yeah.
I really respect that.
Great.
What's been the biggest challenge for you in your work?
Well, it's slaving with the software and
Yeah.
debugging. That's what, there's always bugs.
Yeah.
No matter what you do and how carefully you check it, our users always are finding bugs. We fix them, but it's no software is perfect. I would say it's just, and also another challenge is people demand things that they're used to that we didn't do.
Oh, yeah.
They're used to it, and we just never bothered doing it, but they're used to doing it in a word processor, and so now we got to do it. And to us, it wasn't that important for Bible study, but they're used to it. So I would say those have been some of the biggest challenges, especially the debugging. I mean, just been so many bugs, and most people don't notice them, but there's always somebody that does. It does what we call edge cases, that nobody would ever think of looking at. And I would say those have been the biggest challenges. And the other big challenge we've had is the market. We don't own the market. And unfortunately, at this time, most people have made their decision on Bible software. So getting new users is really difficult right now. Everybody's sort of decided they're going to go with this camp or that camp. We've had a lot of people that switch camps, but I would say they're in a minority. I would say just surviving the market commercially is a huge challenge for us right now, because we don't depend on donations.
Well, it struck me as you were talking, the work involved and looking for errors, fixing bugs, entering the text and getting all the data.
Yeah, there's text bugs as well as software.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I've seen a few of them. But what struck me is you're kind of doing what scribes did centuries ago, right? They're copying by hand. It's very tedious work. People only notice the mistakes, right? And have to go back and fix it. I mean, in some ways, you're really doing what people have been doing for centuries preserving the text, making it available, and passing it on to future generations.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, Wright, it's great to have you here. Thanks for visiting the museum.
Thank you. It's been an honor for me to be here.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
And I look forward to seeing you here again. And thank you for joining us on Today at Museum of the Bible.
Thank you for listening to Today at Museum of the Bible. Join us again to hear how authors, scholars, and leaders are engaging with the Bible every day. Only on Today at Museum of the Bible.